Okay, let's jump right in. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're our little animated stickman protagonist here. You're walking into a grocery store, minding your own business, and you are just eager to buy some jam. Simple enough, right? But when you get to the aisle, you realize this store sells literally one single flavor of jam: strawberry. That is the whole shebang. Now, looking at our stickman, he is pretty unimpressed, and you'd probably be thinking, wow, this is a ridiculously boring store. But hold that thought, because what seems super boring might actually be the absolute secret to human happiness. Welcome to this explainer on the paradox of choice, where we're going to explore why having fewer options might actually be the best thing for your brain.
Now, imagine that boring, one-flavor store suddenly transforms. Boom! The shelves are now packed with 24 different, totally exotic flavors of jam. Initially, this looks amazing. I mean, we're totally conditioned to believe that more choice equals more freedom, and more freedom obviously equals more happiness. We just naturally assume 24 flavors is a guaranteed recipe for absolute joy. But psychology? It proves the exact opposite. This massive overload of choice actually leads straight to misery for our poor stickman. So let's dive into the fascinating evidence that proves exactly why this happens.
Which brings us to Section 1, the famous jam experiment. Let's get into it.
So this whole concept really kicked off back in the year 2000. Psychologists Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper set up a tasting booth in a really upscale grocery store. They wanted to test that classic assumption: is more always better? On some days, they displayed a pretty modest selection of just 6 jam flavors. On other days, they went totally all out with 24 different flavors. And yeah, the massive 24-flavor display naturally attracted way more foot traffic. But here is the massive plot twist in the sales data. When offered 6 flavors, 30% of the people who stopped by actually bought a jar. But when faced with 24 flavors, a measly 3% bought anything. The smaller display literally sold 10 times more jam. I mean, just look at our stickman's animated frustration. Despite being totally drawn to that massive variety, the overwhelming number of choices paralyzed him. He couldn't decide, so he just gave up and walked away completely empty-handed.
So, what's actually happening in our heads? Let's look at Section 2, why options break brains.
To understand exactly why our stickman froze up and left the store without his breakfast spread, we have to look at what psychologist Schwartz calls decision fatigue. This is basically the mental exhaustion caused by evaluating just way too many options. You see, your brain has a very finite amount of energy for making decisions every single day, and every single choice, no matter how tiny, like, comparing boysenberry to blackberry jam, drains a little bit of that energy. So by the time our stickman tries to evaluate all 24 options, his animated battery is just completely dead. And this mental exhaustion leads directly to one of two things: either making a totally random, thoughtless choice, or experiencing total paralysis where you just give up and choose absolutely nothing.
And this decision fatigue? It builds into an absolute perfect storm of anxiety. Schwartz highlights 3 compounding issues here. Number 1, as we just saw, decision fatigue totally drains your energy. But it gets worse. Number 2, the fear of regret actually multiplies with your options. Think about it. If you choose between 2 things and get it wrong, it stings a little. But if you have 24 options and your choice isn't absolutely flawless, you are suddenly haunted by the 23 alternative paths you didn't take. You start imagining all those other jams were way better. And then, number 3, your expectations for finding the perfect choice become completely unrealistic. With unlimited choices, you just naturally assume a flawless option simply must exist somewhere in the mix. So even when our stickman picks a perfectly delicious jam, he's disappointed because it just doesn't meet the impossibly high expectation created by the sheer volume of choices.
And this brings us right to Section 3, real-life choice paralysis.
Because, let's be real, we don't just experience this in fancy grocery store jam aisles. The paradox of choice is pretty much the defining psychological hurdle of our modern digital lives. Think about it. In the past, our stickman might go to the local video store and browse maybe 200 VHS tapes. Today, he is staring down over 10,000 titles on streaming services. Historically, you met romantic partners in real life, maybe through mutual friends. Present day, it's an endless sprawling landscape of dating apps. We can laugh at our stickman's frantic animated swiping, but it's a very real issue. When the next best thing is always just one literal swipe away, people are constantly left feeling unsatisfied with the partner they actually do choose. They're just haunted by the illusion that a flawless match is lurking right there, just out of sight.
Which brings us to this incredibly hard-hitting number, 18. 18 minutes. That is the amount of time the average person spends purely scrolling through streaming services before finally picking a show to watch. That is wild. Sometimes you are spending more time choosing the content than actually watching it. You sit down to relax, but instead, you accidentally trigger this high-stress evaluation process among 10,000 titles. Your brain is desperately trying to maximize the outcome, terrified of the regret of picking a mediocre sitcom when some absolute masterpiece might be buried 2 menus deep.
And the consequences here go way beyond just wasting 18 minutes on your couch. In restaurants, shorter menus actually create happier diners simply because making a choice is easy. The meal feels more special, more satisfying. But over in the corporate world, the really dark side of this emerges. Get this, for every 10 additional mutual funds an employer adds to a 401k plan, employee participation actually drops. The options become so overwhelming that our stickman gets buried under these animated mountains of paperwork and just stops participating in his own financial future altogether. The intense desire to make the perfect financial choice directly results in making absolutely no choice at all.
Okay, so how do we fix this? Let's move to Section 4, How to Beat the Paradox.
The good news here is that psychology actually provides a cure to rewire our brains. Let's walk through a 4-step action plan to navigate this world of infinite choices. Step 1. Set strict criteria before you browse. Decide your 2 or 3 absolute must-haves before you even open the app. This instantly filters 50 options down to, like, 5. Step 2. Practice satisficing. This is a huge one. Satisficers are people who pick the very first option that meets their core needs. They actively accept good enough. And studies show satisficers are consistently happier than maximizers who obsessively hunt for absolute perfection. Step 3. Actively limit your own options. If you're a business, offer fewer choices to increase your sales. If you're a consumer, narrow your own shortlist immediately and just actively ignore the rest. And finally, Step 4. Set a strict decision deadline. Give yourself a hard, non-negotiable time limit. The longer you think, the more choice paralysis grows. A deadline simply forces your brain to commit and move on.
So, if you take nothing else away from this, I really want you to remember this phrase. Sometimes, less really is more. And I want to reassure you right now. If you have ever found yourself freezing up with 40 browser tabs open, desperately trying to buy the perfect laptop, or standing completely immobilized in the cereal aisle, it is not a personal failure. You are not broken. It is literally just your biology acting exactly as predicted when exposed to an unnatural amount of data. By understanding this paradox, you can finally give yourself permission to stop obsessing, grab a box like our happily animated stickman here, and just enjoy a perfectly good choice.
So, to wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider this. Right now, you have millions of other explainers, articles, and shows you could potentially jump to next. So, what's it going to be? Will you spend the next 18 minutes completely paralyzed by the algorithm, hunting for the perfect thing to learn? Or will you embrace satisficing, make a quick choice, and simply enjoy whatever comes next? Think about what causes your own choice paralysis today. Let us know and make sure to subscribe for more weekly psychology explainers that map out the hidden wires in your brain.